city you burn, I'm gonna build one high.
Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden, and it is June 10th. It's one day before the expansion. That's the only thing that matters. YC126, and this is the Universe Show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you guys so much for coming, settling down, sitting down. It is Monday, which is not a normal day for me to stream, but tomorrow is the expansion, and there's just so much other stuff going on. Last Friday, we went over the expansion notes, which took 3 full hours to go over. They are still live on the channel now with timestamps to thank you very much to Punch for doing so. I also do want to take this opportunity to say my thoughts and hope and prayers are with Punch and his family, who are going through some rough times right now. You know, if you get a chance to see him, you know, wish him the best. But either way, he did spend his time to get the chapters done. So that is all done in that video, which I really, really appreciate. There was a lot of stuff going over. This man plays Eve. Time is an illusion. But yeah, no, I think that I also want to say that this week is graduation week for my son. So I have no idea what my schedule is going to be like after that fact. In addition to that, my son's birthday is next month. So I'm going to be trying to raise some more money and all that stuff in order to give him an awesome birthday. So I do want to say very much thank you to both Tranquilla and Bash for your support with your super chats earlier. Very much appreciative. But with all that said, happy birthday to your son. Yes. Well, again, that's in a month. So his graduation party is tomorrow, technically. And I've been wanting... Hey, thank you, Tranquilla, for 5 gifted memberships to Virewolf, Nicholas, David, a name I'm not going to try to pronounce, and Saint Garjonis. Thank you. And, of course, myself. Thank you, Tranquilla. But, yeah... I want to take my son out to like some sort of nice, like Japanese steakhouse for graduation. It's his first graduation because he's graduating elementary school. It's gonna be really cool. But either way, yeah, and that's not Eve stuff. That's not what's coming tomorrow or anything like that. Again, if you want to know everything that we know about what's coming tomorrow, I covered pretty much everything you could possibly think of on Friday. I do want to say that I did look into it a little bit more, and it seems as if these new home fronts are going to be coming soon, but not as part of the expansion on that's tomorrow. So we don't know exactly when those are going to be made available, but we do see that there is some new stuff, including 3-man home fronts. If you want more information about that, you can check out the stream from yesterday now with timestamps. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, new haulers are basically combat cruisers with hauling capabilities. It's actually true. Okay. But today, I did want to, because I didn't want it to conflict with tomorrow's stuff, I want to cover the lore stuff that was dropped last week. Get that out of the way and talk about it and all that stuff today. So that way, when we go tomorrow, we are 100% just talking about Equinox, its fallout, or its, you know, its ramifications and how it's playing out. So with all that said, let's jump into it with our New Eden news for June 7th, YC126. Empress breaks silence on Upwell. Domain Amar. Empress Caddis has given a full public address on Upwell workforce clone transfers. Over the last month, both those for and against the transfers have called for the Empress to speak on the issue. The Empress broke her silence in a cluster-wide broadcast made from the Imperial Palace on Amar Prime. In an uncharacteristic move, the Empress focused on scripture, beginning with, quote, "As Emperor rules holder." as holder rules serf, yet all under heaven serves me. Consider those words, all under heaven serves me. Not only those who serve within the empire, but all. You will bring its message to every planet of every star in the heavens, not only to the reaches of our holy empire, but every planet. The speech was, however, not entirely positive on the issue. Quote, sacred flesh may not be remade, but those who consider their bodies profane or filled with sin might feel the need to cast them off. The religious doctrine of sacred flesh is usually only applied to royals, not the commoners who are most likely to seek out Upwell's workforce transfers. However, the implication that Upwell transfers are desirable to the sinful echoes of rhetoric used by Upwell's critics. The Empress concluded that, quote, those considering Upwell's invitation must maintain their faith, no matter what world they live in or what flesh they inhabit. They must carry their devotion to Amar with them. The address was met with rapturous applause at the Imperial Palace and was praised as a, quote, thoughtful and powerful exploration of the topic through the lens of faith by Amar Certified News. The speech, however, fell short of passing an imperial edict on the matter. Without an edict, the decision on whether to allow Upwell recruitment will remain in the noble houses and their holders. Those who can gain access to the recruitment facilities will be free to transfer. Lord R.M. Ardishipur, the most vocal opponent of Upwell within the Amar's royal houses, told Amar Certified News that he was, quote, happy to await a clear edict on the matter once the Empress feels the time has come, adding that, quote, one cannot argue with the wisdom born of Scripture. The sources within House Ardishipur have told the scope that Lord Aram has withdrawn from any public debate on the issue following the Empress's uncharacteristic theological approach, leading to speculation that this was the reason for her reliance on Scripture. King Forko Khanid, an open advocate of Upwell workforce transfer, called the announcements, quote, an acceptable lecture on theology. He, too, was left dissatisfied by the Empress's failure to deliver an edict on the matter. Oh, that's outside. On the matter, but offered that he was glad that she was, quote, open to the future, even if she is not yet ready to embrace it. News in brief. Labor populists deny any remaining connection to former member terrorist Tibal Trailer. Questions raised by Concord as known associate of the Deathless Circle spotted in SOE station at the IFU system. Sukavesta's executive board meets with Upwell Consortium representatives as chief executive panel considers workforce transfers. And Kami Daya's latest collection was banned in the Amar Empire by the Ministry of Imperial Order, or Internal Order. And that's it for the news for here on June 6th, YC126. June 7th, YC126. Let's go ahead and talk about some analysis. So the Empress has been very careful. One of the things that we've been going over as we lead up to Uprising is each of the empire's relationship with the changes that are coming. Now, one of the latest news that we did get was that Malatu Shakur, the head of the Mimitar Republic, was one of the very first people to agree on the Upwell transfers. You see, Tribal Council approves Upwell workforce transfers. This was just one day prior. So we actually have the Malatu Shakur, the head of the Mimitar, basically openly saying that, you know, Mimitar have the freedom to choose. And then the Empress basically says that the ability to become an Upwell clone, while it would be not necessarily great for somebody of sacred flesh, for those who are not of the sacred, as it were, those who are cursed with sin, may wish to give up their flesh in order to join the Upwell workforce, as long as they do not give up their faith. What is actually happening here is that it seems that Katastash Merkon is setting up her political rivals to have to make a decision that would, quote unquote, go against the Empress. Now, this is kind of a slow walk that the Empress has been doing since the beginning of these announcements, and with other changes that have been happening over the last couple of years within the Empire, notably involving the relationship with slaves and their legal status within the Empire and when they should release them, basically putting pressure on, almost daring the Empress's enemies to attempt to contradict the Empress's will, right? And in the way that she speaks is more to be like, you know what the correct answer is. You can either choose to go along with it and show that you are inherent, you are aligned with Scripture, or, I have every right to speak out against your blasphemy, which is really important for Caddis Mercon, because Caddis's basic, like, her Achilles heel is her legitimacy. Her more fanatical, like, opponents will point to the fact that she has Eudorian blood to say that her status as Empress is less legitimate than some others. And so her holding strictly to Scripture and daring her rivals to cross her is a pretty savvy political move by the Empress. Now, in the news in brief, we see the Labor populists try to deny any remaining connections with the former a member and terrorist leader, Tybalt Trailer. That is actually from not this one. That's the same one. Dang it, I didn't pull it up. Oh well, hold on. So Tybalt Taylor. Taylor? Thibault Taylor. We're going to go with that. He was a senator. So outspoken Labor populist Senator Thibault Taylor was expelled from the Senate yesterday, according to official reports. The decision was made by the Senate Disciplinary Committee and confirmed by the Senate following accusations by the Federal Intelligence Office that he is the founding member of the terrorist organization Galantia Primacy. Taylor's whereabouts are currently unknown. According to Senate officials, the disciplinary committee proceeding were initially carried out in secrecy in order to avoid alerting Taylor. Based on the evidence provided by the FIO, the former senator has been charged with conspiracy to commit acts of terrorism, murder, and the misappropriation of federal funds and treason. So that's him. He's been on the lam since for a year now, basically, as the release of Homefronts came. And now, so this Labor populist deny connections to it is actually related to the event that just happened that we were just looking at. Hold on. If we go back and look at the previous New Eden news, we see in the news, we see Intaki security forces arrest 4 in connection with thwarted Galantian primacy attack. So the Intaki security forces are interacting with Galantian primacy. The wanted terrorist Taylor broadcasts a rant against the Intaki President Agard and Upwell. So so Taylor puts out a broadcast ranting against Intaki, Agard, and Upwell right at the same time that an attack was thwarted. So likely these were designed to correspond with each other, which is, of course, like the labor movement within Intaki have been trying to gain political power in Intaki, which is why we're seeing them distance themselves. See, labor populists deny any remaining connection to the former members and terrorists Taylor because of everything that's been going on in Intaki. They're trying to keep their own nose clean as they fight over the political future of Intaki. Black Eagles probably sent him off to Guantanamo. Maybe. Then questions raised by Concord as a known associate of the Deathless Circle spotted in SOE stations in the EFU system. Now, EFU was actually best well known because the EFU Society of Conscious Thought station was one of the stations that were attacked by the Kainoke plague, whose source was actually never really determined as to who exactly was involved in that. But the SOE station is in the same system as that SOCT station. The SOE and SOCT have not been friendly with one another. The SOE does have some connections with various agencies. I wonder who this known associate of the Deathless Circle is. I think Malik and I have a guess that this is the Life Giver, but we don't actually know for sure. Sugavesta Executive Board meets with Upwell Consortium representatives as Chief Executive Panel considers workforce transfer. There has been a lot of split within the Caldari between the mega corporations as to whether or not they want to support the Upwell Consortium, with the Mountain faction, I think, being one of the factions that are in support of Upwell. And so this kind of makes sense that they're forwarding that agenda. And then, of course, Kami Dai's latest collection was banned from Omar Empire. This is actually really interesting because Kami Daya is from this news report. Turnur survivors charged with treason after calling for desertions. A writer and Turnur survivor, Kami Daya, has released a holoreel calling for Republic troops to abandon their posts. The holoreel is covertly distributed by Daya's supporters throughout the Republic military. It contains a recording of her condemning the Republic for their failure to protect smaller clan holdings from a recent rise in criminal activity and pirate attacks. According to Daya, these attacks are the result of the Republic's desire to embrace new technologies such as the Itinerant Forge project. I find this really fascinating because it means that the Amar are taking action against dissonance within the Mimitar Republic. It's like, even though the Amar are against the Mimitar, the idea of like being subversive is somehow more disruptive than who they're being subversive to, right? You would think that the Amar would want to support the efforts of anything kind of causing a wrench in the Mimitar Republic, but instead you get the they have banned it as well. They don't want these radical thoughts getting out within the Amar, even if they are anti-Mimitar. It's just interesting to see Deathless operating as far out of Iridia as Iridia. Yeah, well, so remember, Khanid and Lidai have been operating in and around Iridia doing secret stuff for quite some time recently. Quick explanation of the Life Giver. The Life Giver is a character that showed up in Empyrean Age and Templar 1. And she was a Caldari who defected from the Caldari and eventually joined the Amarian faith. She was closely tied to the clone soldiers in Templar 1 to the point where she was one of the ones that helped save Victor during that whole thing and was kind of helped out by the Galente. I think it was the Galente. It was either Galente or the Caldari set her up to actually do investigations into the Deathless or into the Templars at the time, which would later then go on to become like the Dust 514 project. She then largely disappeared from everybody's radar until 2 months ago, when the Life Giver was identified as a known associate of the Deathless Circle, who have been operating under the Deathless Circle's banner since 2015. Did you just say the SOCT and the SOE are not cooperative? The standing systems wouldn't agree with that. They have had a secret war against each other for quite some time. Publicly, they are in agreement with each other, but the SOE and the SOCT have, like, logistically been hostile to each other on numerous occasions. The most notable example of that is the Black Mountain series. The girl who brings the invitation. We do not know who the girl who brings the invitation is. We nicknamed her Alpadirch. I don't think that that's the Life Giver. I don't think that the Life Giver would be that highly augmented. She's a very normal person in the book. That's the thing. Like, the whole thing about the Lifebringer is that they brought her up recently in the news. Where'd it go? Maybe I can just look up Life Giver. Hold on. Yeah. So when the Kemeltech convoy was attacked, when the Kemeltech convoy was destroyed, we get CDIA information seeking information on our combined figure identified as Life Giver, following reappearance of Alias and Deathless communications. Life Giver Alias originally noted in DED and YC115, 116 reports in connection with suspected Guristas and Angel Cartel elements. SSDT, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, the SOE and the SOCT are definitely acting against each other during the SOE Epic arc. Well, so remember, so like the most interesting thing about Alpadirch, boy, this is not what I thought we were going to be talking about most of the time. But if we go back to Alpadirch, which again, that's not actually her name, but if we go back to the Alpadirch picture, we can see that like Alpadirch was shown in she's the bartender when Leopold and Esri Hokozotsu are meeting at the Pulse Bar. She is also at the Caldari. She's at the Caldari Forge during the Caldari video. She's looking up at the hauler flying by. And of course, she's the one that delivers the invitation during the invitation. So, yeah, we hope to find more information about her. But I don't necessarily, like, she might be the life giver. Might be. But I have no reason to believe either way that that's true yet. Okay. But that is about it for the New Eden news for last week. Again, it's still pretty basic stuff. I imagine we are on news watch for the rest of the week. Because here's the thing. Not only do we have the expansion tomorrow, which we still need to get like a major trailer for and possibly have some events leading up to it. But remember, 9 days after the expansion is when more things unlock, right? And so the question is, what is going to happen within the next 9 days to justify that unlock in universe, right? Like we know outside of universe that these things are happening, but in universe, these are not announced dates or anything like that per se. I mean, like we know that Upwell is releasing their new lineup tomorrow, but whether or not there's any setbacks about it or any involvement with the death list or otherwise is still up in the air. So, you know, we still don't have information about how the Caldari feel about. Well, the Caldari haven't agreed on how they feel about the the Upwell situation. The Galente have come out pretty pro, but they have not come out with like a formal agreement. The only ones that have formally agreed with Upwell are the Mimitar so far. So my thoughts on how the market will react on the new expansion, I think it's going to be all over the place. I think that minerals will likely potentially go down, especially the minerals that were previously only available in low sec or high sec. You know, it's really hard for me to predict. I've given a lot of predictions last Friday though, so you should check out the patch note video. But I do want to jump into the big event for the day. Now, today is going to be probably a shorter stream because we are only going to be going over these New Eden news. By the way, sorry, before we jump into that, I do want to point out, I do have my new... hold on. Check it out. I got it, my new invited camo t-shirt. And it's, you know, the part that's awesome about this is that it's actually working, right? Like, this is a green shirt. I would think that my green screen would freak out with it, but it's not. So that's a double bonus. But it looks really good. Like, I'm not even going to lie. It actually ended up looking really good. It's screen printed, so it's not going to last forever. You know, I'm not going to pretend like it's like the highest quality printed shirt out there. But like, for what it is, I'm so happy. It's pretty all right. We'll have to see how it lasts. I don't know. I always get kind of weirded out about the quality of these kinds of things. It is a lighter shirt, which is nice for the summer. I look almost invisible. That's right. You can't see me. Oddly enough, you can see the camo, right? Like there you go. You can't see me. But the cup is also pretty awesome. I know. Look, okay. But if you want the best so far, I showed it yesterday, but I have a shirt now that says software developer exclamation point equals tech support, which you should definitely get if you're a software developer like me. All right. Carrier's going to go up. Isogen going to go down. Plex will skyrocket for reasons. So the thing is that like when it comes to things like the gas and the isogen and the stuff like that, that is like the most on the chopping block. We're really going to have to see what happens with capitals, right? Because capitals are such a huge force in the industry. You know, you could lose all pirate ship production and see a small uptick in carriers and probably still consume the same amount of isogen and gas and the other stuff like that you used to with pirate ships, just because of the sheer quantity of stuff that every single capital takes. You could actually, so we're going to have to see how these things shift as people, are people going to build enough carriers to make up for the fact that they no longer need those doodads for pirate ships? I will say this. Pirate ships are going to get a lot cheaper, and it depends on the pirate ship. Interestingly enough, this is going to hit SOE ships are going to get a little bit more expensive potentially. Serpentis ships could get a lot more expensive, actually, or at least stay expensive. Same with Sancha to a lesser extent, and Mordu. What's interesting about Mordu is that right now you can just go and get Mordu ships by hunting Mordu rats. But now, in order to build those Mordu ships, you can't just get the gas. You have to actually run missions for Mordu's Legion to get Mordu's LP. That's going to be a weird one for a lot of people, I think. It's going to be actually more difficult, potentially, to build Mordu ships than it was before. But Guristas and Angel ships in particular are going to become significantly easier to produce. Not only do they just take more LP in a world in which people gain tons of LP because of insurgencies, but also because of the way that these blueprints work now, you're going to get a lot more advantage of the material efficiency bonuses built into Zarzak. So while before those built-in bonuses from Zarzak barely affected you because the chip itself doesn't get reduced, and that's the big expensive thing. Now, since it requires multiple of these net devices, that can be reduced by ME. So, producing ships in Zarzak makes a ton more sense than they used to know. So, yeah. SOE will crash in price. There's an level 4 agent there, heck, that people will farm the crap of. Yeah, SOE I think will probably be fine because SOE LP is relatively easy to get. Where's the merch site? Isn't it down below? Hold on. Oh, shoot. That's the live stream. Hold on. Yes, Zarzak has ME bonuses for pirate ships. I've linked the spreadsheet link. Yeah, for Angels and Guristas. The biggest loser out of this entire expansion, and my condolences goes out to you, is all of you who have been building trigger units, right? Maybe, like the gas huffers, the guys who have been building the trigger units, like there could be a chance that they are still used enough in capitals. But as of right now, trigger units went from being incredibly useful because it's used in all the pirate ships to basically only being useful in capital ships. So unless they add them back into being necessary for Empire pirate ships, Empire faction ships rather, that's going to be a big problem for anybody who has invested into those. Right. Well, so again, all of this depends on how much capitals will be used and produced. If capital production upticks enough to compensate for the lack of requirements in pirate ships and such, then absolutely it'll still be useful. Same with, you know, the minerals and stuff like that. Yeah, we'll have to see. It's also worth noting that it will take a little while for the minerals to settle down because, you know, the NPC or the player, the null blocks will need to build their sky hooks, deploy them, put in the upgrades, decide how they want to lay things out, etc., etc. So it's not going to be like an immediate turnaround. I imagine it'll be at least a week or two before we see any kind of readiness to convert over. To be fair, it was a net loss to build pirate ships, which is why people were doing direct LP, but that's not true. And so there were... okay. You couldn't do direct buys of pirate ships from the Faction Warfare LP store. I think you could do it from the standard LP store, from the burner agents and stuff like that, but not from the Faction Warfare LP store. That was only Navy ships had that ability. Oh, that's what it is. The real losers. Here's my question, okay? Here's my question. What are we going to do with all these Nexus chips? What are Nexus chips used for? Can anyone tell me? What is the value of Nexus chips? Are they going to make Nexus chips into a commodity? Are they going to take them away from the LP store? Can you still buy Nexus chips on the LP store even though they're used in basically nothing? Are they used in anything anymore? Because it used to be that Empire ships and such, like if you wanted to get a Vexor Navy issue, you would need a Vexor and a Beta, I think it was, maybe a Gamma Nexus chip in order to convert it into a Vexor Navy issue. That's what Nexus chips were used for. Given the fact that there are no more turning in ships in order to get a ship, then that would mean that there's no more use for Nexus chips. What are they going to do with those? That's a big question, for sure. But yeah. 19 trillion to put skyhooks down in all of nullsec. They're not going to put a skyhook on every single planet, though. So yeah, trigger units is still useful, but Nexus chips not so much. And building pirate ships were absolutely profitable. We've been doing it. They'll probably keep it around as legacy. There is no legacy system, though. There is no legacy system. They got rid of the turning in for So what you're saying is that now you can go to an LP store and buy something that literally has no use. It might as well be carbon. Hold on, I might be dumb. I might be using the wrong word. Hold on. Am I talking about the right thing? Hold on. Somebody's trying to talk to me. All right, hold on. It's a Nexus chip, right? I'm not talking about the thing you turn in for the Sisters of Eve. I'm talking about... yeah. Right? Yeah. Galente Beta Nexus chip. Right? So... if you want to, there it is. If you want to get a Vexor Navy issue, you have to have a Nexus chip and a Vexor and some LP in order to turn it into a Vexor Navy issue. What was the justification for removing the Nexus chip turn-ins? Because they want all of the ships to be constructed. Yeah. That sounds like my pile of Navy mega holes I exchanged for Faction Warfare LP store for Nexus chips might get a bump in price. I can't imagine someone going through the hassle of producing it voluntarily. Well, you know, you never know. They have made actual production of the ships a lot easier, though. It's crazy to me. Hopefully they fix it so that way they're not in the LP store anymore, or they're a commodity that they can be turned in. And oops, I didn't even show it. Oh, well. All right, let's get into the big news of the day. Guys. We have a new chronicle. Holy shit. All right. All right. Before we jump into the actual chronicle itself, though, I do want to point out how big of a freaking deal this is, okay? So chronicles are like the big story beats of the game. And a lot of people will talk about how there used to be a whole bunch of chronicles and now there aren't that many anymore. Now, a big reason why this is because back in like 2006, I think it was, 2006 to 2010, they had like this huge uptick in the amount of writing and lore and world building they were doing during that time. And then after that, we see this big fall off in the number of chronicles that are produced. And a lot of the chronicles that were from there on was like things like from the book or whatever, like These Friendly Skies and Domination. Like these are from the actual like the Frigates of Eve book and the whatnot. Inheritance is one of the last big chronicles that we've gotten, and that was explanation of what happened during the Caroline Star event in 2013, 2014 or whatever. The final chronicle that we got was Mithra's Gate. We got Sine Wave Alpha, Sine Wave Omega, and Mithra's Gate, all three of which were big time chronicles. Sine Wave Alpha and Sine Wave Omega, I've done readings of all three of these. Sine Wave Alpha and Omega has a bunch of the lore stuff that leads into even what we see today when it comes to, the Empress and Shetrash Spire and the politics involved in all of this, and a lot of the plot involving the Deathless Circle and SOE and all that stuff comes from Sine Wave Alpha and Sine Wave Omega. So chronicles are big deals, and we dig into them for years. And if you look at it, we haven't had a chronicle since 2018. It goes from 2020 or YC120 to YC126. It has been 6 years since we have gotten a chronicle. We have gone the entirety of incursion or invasions with no chronicles. We've had the entire Eve graphic novel released. No chronicle, nothing, right? You could argue that the graphic novel is the closest thing to a chronicle we've had. Most importantly, we haven't had a chronicle since the introduction of the Triglavians, and that is where this chronicle becomes incredibly important, because the thing that's cool about the Triglavians is that basically everything that we know about them is from environmental storytelling, right? We have unreliable narrators, we've got fragmentary information, and we've got huge cultural barriers between our culture and their culture that gets in the way of us learning about the Triglavians. I've made many videos. Who are the Triglavians? Breaking down their communications. I've spent hours and months and years now trying to understand the Slavic culture and language and how it translates into how the Triglavians communicate and what they mean when they say what they say. But there has been so many things about the Triglavian collective, very basic facts, that I could not say definitively. A good example of this is when we listen to the Triglavians talk. When we listen to the Triglavians talk,
Triglav.
We are Zoria Triglav.
We speak for the
Congregation of Trig outside the struggle.
we hear a male voice, a female voice, and a robotic voice, okay? Whether or not this, and I've always said, like, I don't actually know whether or not, like, all Triglavians are this way, if this is a very specific thing. Is this just Zoria? Because we've only ever heard messages from Zoria, the detached executive troika for the sublimation of Kapashlas Flow, which, as Zoria herself points out, she is an emanation of the three clades of Verles, Perun, and Svarog. Now, there have been lots of questions, or at least I have questioned, whether or not the three voices are related to the three clades, with Veles being the robotic-sounding voice, Perun being the male-sounding voice, and Svarog being Svarog being the male voice, and Perun being the female voice, or is it their spirit, soul, and mind idea of the Nafka, the spirit, soul, and body, Nafka, Narania, and Koshoi, right? Like, are those the three things? are all Triglavians this way? Is this a special effect that they have put into their videos in order to show coherence? Since coherence of messaging is so important to the Triglavians? What is going on here? What is a troika? We don't actually know what a troika is, per se. So, and the reason why is because a lot of the information that we have to infer from what we see and hear. And so we're having to make a lot of assumptions. Chronicles are really good because it gives us direct information. And with that in mind, let's jump into the Chronicle of Hostile. Towering above the boon. Let's try again. Towering above the dunes, 2 ships creaked in the wind. A skybreaker, half buried, its wings blackened by fire. A Damavik, hull fractured, precariously balanced on its stern, its nose teetering skyward. The lone human constructs in the endless desert of the barren world. The ships were twin monuments to the battle in which they had fallen, a battle not yet done. Edencom Lieutenant Jarish Kovac kept his combat rifle raised and his enemy in his sights. His survival had been a miracle. The skybreaker behind him had become a mausoleum filled with the bodies of those less fortunate, his crewmates, his friends. The crash had claimed them all, but not this thing that now stood before him. It stood silhouetted against the red-purple light of the setting sun. Dark armor, a hood, and a face mask covered its body. The perfect image of the Triglavian menace from every briefing Jarish has ever attended. Its hands were empty, but a triple-pointed entropic dart hung in the air above its shoulder. A shiver ran down his spine as he remembered that particular briefing. The words, "slow and painful," loomed large in his memory. His finger moved into position over the rifle's trigger. "Give it up!" he called out, unsure if the enemy would even understand. "I'm broadcasting our location." He jabbed a pulsing light on his chest. "Any minute now, a squadron of Edencom's finest will be all over this rock. If you want to live, you best surrender now." The enemy cocked its head to one side. "You don't get it, do you? You're my prisoner. And when they come," he pointed to the cloudless skies as if summoning a wrath of an ancient god, "you will submit." "Stillness is hollow Bravda. Within the flow only direction is Istana." Repeated 3 times. As it spoke, the enemy's 3 voices cascaded over one another. One feminine and bold, the other lively but mechanical, a third masculine and calm. Which of the 3, he wondered, controlled its face behind that mask? "Is that a threat?" he shouted back, squinting against the stinging grains of sands as the wind whipped them up into his face, his fingers tightening around the trigger. There was no response. Hours passed, the dart pointing toward Jarish, Jarish's finger hovering over the trigger. Behind the enemy, the Damavik creaked and cracked, its great weight gently swinging in the breeze. Eventually, the sun slipped beneath the horizon, making way for a cold and bitter wind. Jarish felt it bite through his combat suit as the temperature plummeted. As night fell, the empty sky of Pochvin came into view. Once, before the Triglavians claimed this region, uncountable stars would have shone down on this barren world. Now, only thin lines of red broke the abyssal darkness, a darkness that covered the planet, rendering him almost blind. Jarish shivered. The enemy looked on. Taking a deep breath, he steadied himself, rubbing his arms in an instinctive attempt to retain warmth. Lowering his gun, he unclipped his canteen and took a sip. Neurodnia stability is now time priority. Exchange would lead to glorification. Jarish lifted his rifle back up. "Why the fuck would I care about your priorities?" As it spoke, the enemy raised its hand. Something flapped in the wind. A hooded jacket barely visible in the night. Jarish shivered once more. "Oh, you want to trade? How civilized. I guess I'll just come over there and let my guard down then, huh? Neurodnia stability is now time priority, not extirpation. Our stability is now time priority, not extirpation." It was small, the break in their unison. Something human, flanked by voices so practical. He almost didn't hear it. If he had not, perhaps he would have chosen differently. "We meet in the middle. No funny business." He pointed to the spot between them. Slowly, the 2 edged towards one another. Jarish tossed his canteen into the black. He heard it thud, and moments later, the sound of cloth hitting the ground by his feet. Desperately, he snatched up the jacket, threw it over his shoulders, and clasped it tight. He let out a sigh of relief. Across the dark, he heard the sound of pouring liquid. Then the ships fell. First came the thundering sound of cracking steel, then the shifting of sand. The Damavik began to fall, its great mass descending towards them with a sudden and violent force. Jarish acted before he had a chance to think. The hood fell away from his head as he rushed forward, tackling the Triglavian and forcing them out of the way. Slamming into the dune, the two rolled downward, their fingers clasped around each other's arms in a desperate pull for survival. With an earth-shaking crash, the ship collided on the ground, tossing waves of grit into the air. It began to roll, tumbling down the dunes, splashing and scattering its sand as it went, hurtling towards the two survivors. Quickly, they rose to their feet, and side by side, they began to run. What lay ahead, how far they needed to move, these were unknowable under the abyssal sky. Each step was a leap of faith, a tiny prayer for the salvation, as the crushing weight of the great machine grew louder in their ears. Finally, they were delivered in a rush of air as the Damavik rolled past, barely missing them. The two survivors collapsed to their knees. As they caught their breath and a mighty crash rang out, the frigates had found a new equilibrium. They were alive. Losing himself in the moment, Jarish burst out laughing. At his side, the Triglavian joined in. 4 voices united in relief. The Triglavians turned to face Jarish. Fitness has been proven. They slapped his back as they spoke. He was shocked by the familiarity of the gesture. Then the Triglavian stood up, facing the distant horizon. Direction has not. Jarish turned his head, facing the same way as the Triglavian. The new lights have appeared in the night sky. 3 red points. Edencom ships burn blue. He turned to face the Triglavian, the entropic dart still poised over his shoulder. His combat rifle, however, had been lost to the desert the moment he rushed to save them. The beacon on his chest still pulsed, but it was only now that Jarish considered that only the victors of the battle above could intercept his broadcast. The Triglavian stood before him, a hand outstretched. Poshlosts require extirpation, but the flow grants glorification. Only direction is Sistana. Which is yours? Jarish smiled and rose to his feet. He lunged forward. The dart's tip ignited. The briefings had not exaggerated. The weapon was not kind. As pain crept over his body, he fell into the arms of his enemy. Resting on the dunes above him, one ship remained standing, a memorial to the fallen. And that is the Chronicle Hostile. Now, what can we take out of this Chronicle? Well, first of all, the triple voice of the Triglavian collective is, if not universal, a common thing. Now, based on what they've said about a Troika, we can now basically be pretty confident that that a Troika is one of these people. Okay, one of these 3 voiced individuals within the Triglavian collective. Now, excuse me. That seems to also imply that this is the Koshoi, the Narania, and the Nafka, with the Nafka being the robotic voice. It's hard to say that for sure. There is some new verbiage that is introduced in this. You know, we see stillness is hollow pravda. Within the flow, only direction is Istana. So this got me to start looking up these words. What is Istana? What is Pravda? So Pravda and Istana are both Slavic words. And the concept between these two terms is something that gets debated a lot, actually, which is sort of helpful because it's not only that I get to look up these words, but like there are people literally just discussing what is the difference between these two different words. And so my favorite example is Pravda is the opposite of a lie. Istana is the opposite of false. Okay. So the biggest thing is that a Pravda is the truth as represented, right? So if you witness a crime, right? You see a dude rob a lady. You know, you see a dude steal a girl's or a woman's purse and run off, right? And then over the course of events, they arrest some people. They bring you to the lineup. They have you choose them out of a lineup. You choose the person that they expected you to choose. That helps them identify the person. And then they go to trial, and your testimony that says that you correctly identified him, that is used in trial. That testimony is pravda. You believe it is true. Okay? But let's say that you're mistaken. Okay? As is very common in the moment, in these kinds of really energetic moments, you know, our memory is really, really bad, right? And so this idea of like false identification of criminals, very, very common. Falsely pulling out a person out of a lineup, very, very common. Every step of the way, you thought you were telling the truth, but you were wrong. You were mistaken. So the pravda is what you said, but what you said is not istana. It is not true. It is pravda. It is the truth as you know it. It is not a lie. It is honest, but it is not istana. It is not true. So with that said, we can go back to the Chronicle and we can see stillness is hollow pravda. Within the flow, only direction is istana. So in other words, what I interpret this to mean is that doing nothing, right? Because remember, they're having a standoff here. He's pointing at them, they're pointing at him, and he's saying, surrender. And he says, stillness is a hollow truth. Within the flow, within our direction, only the correct direction, only the thing that leads towards the flow of virage, the forwarding of the agenda of the Triglavian collective, that is the only true direction. All else is poshlost. That is what he's saying, more or less, right? And so he says, okay, well, he says, you will submit. And he goes, hey, stalemate, stillness, that's a hollow ending. The only true way is to seek the truth of virage, right? So then later on, he says, okay, Narania stability, your stability, the stability of the body of the person is the priority. Therefore, if we exchange, that will lead to glorification. Remember, glorification is like approval, right? So then it says, you know, Narania stability is now time priority, not extirpation, and our stability is now time priority, not extirpation. So it like revealed the true reason why they're doing it. They're not doing it for his good, they're doing it for their own good, right? Stability of both players is important here. So then when he saves them, when the man saves the Triglavian responds by saying, fitness has been proven. You are fit. However, the direction has not. And that reminds me of actually this statement here. Hold on.
And more may be fit to answer.
Hold on.
Human augmented Narodnia must prove the direction of their flow.
Moving with the flow may be fit to answer.
Narodnia without fitness will be expelled from the flow.
Expelled from the flow.
The convocation of Triglav outside the struggle invoke cladistic
throwing.
Glorification is fit, and mortification is
Unfold on the flow.
Okay, so what did that mean? So basically what they're saying is that, you know, there are two requirements here, okay? Cladistic proving. So it says that Narodnia, which is people, so this is actually foreign augmented Narodnia, us, Capsuleers. Narodnia flow must prove the direction of their flow. Narodnia moving within the flow of virage may be fit to enter beyond, but Narodnia without fitness will be expelled from the flow. So there's two requirements here. One, you must be working within the flow of virage. You must be working within their agenda and their, you know, their destiny, their shared destiny or whatever. And two, you must be fit. So it's not enough to just be like, yeah, I want to be on the Triglavian side. If you're pro-Triglavian but bad, then you'll be expelled from the flow. They have no place within the flow of virage for weak and failures, okay? That's the proving. But those who are not within the flow of virage are poshlost and must be extirpated, right? We see actually in the posts by the Triglavians, in the messages from the Triglavians, we see where is it? Clades within the struggle, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. For Norania, proving fitness to join the flow shall be glorified. Kybernoths proving praxis of extirpation, Proshlost shall be glorified. So they're saying, like, you must become glorified and work within the flow of Viraj in order to destroy the Proshlost flow. So that's what he's saying to him. He says, okay, well, you have proven yourself worthy to work with the Triglavian collective, but you've not yet proven whether or not you are an ally or an enemy. That's what he's saying right there. Okay. And then, of course, later on, he says, Proshlost requires extirpation, but the flow grants glorification. Only direction is Astana. What is yours? Okay. So there's only one true way. If you are Proshlost, you must be destroyed. If you join the flow, you will be glorified. Right? Fitness has been proven. You will be glorified. Only direction is Astana. What is yours? His response is to attack the Triglavian. Therefore, he gets killed. And that's the story, right? So this human, attempts to threaten the Triglavians. They, of course, lose. The Triglavians try to give him a chance. Even then, he refuses, and the Triglavian kills him. And that's the story. And that tells us a lot about, like, who the Triglavians are. One of the things that I wonder is, was that the only Triglavian in the Damavik? Or did other Triglavians within the Damavik die? Because they call the Damavik a hold on. They call the Damavik is the 3 tactical troika classification. So the question is, does this mean that there are 3 people? Or is there 1 person? Or is this just different? Because, like, the Kikamura is the 9 tactical troika classification. The Vedmak is the 81 tactical troika classification. One of the things that people have suspected is that means the crew. Yes, Neurania are people. Augmented Neurania are Capsuleers. Does the second voice speak as it is Neurania while the other is not? So not the same entity as the other voices? That's actually a really good... That's a good guess. That's actually an incredibly good guess. That's probably the best explanation I've heard so far as to why these 3 are different, right? Because, so the Koshoi and the Nafka say it this way, but the Nerodnia, who sees them as being, I'm a body, you're a body, we're both Nerodnia, would say our. Whereas the Koshoi and the Nafka would refer to the Nerodnia, i.e. my body and your body. But they are both external to them because, the Koshoi is not the Nerodnia, whatever the hell, however that works out, right? So that's actually a really, really, really interesting idea, especially since it says something human flanked by a voice is so practical, right? It also seems to imply, if we go back to here, we can see that there was a feminine was bold, lively and mechanical, and masculine and calm. So since one is lively and mechanical and one's masculine and calm, you would think that those would be the ones that are practical, where the one who is bold is the one that isn't necessarily as practical. So maybe the female is the body, which makes sense. So far, every Triglavian we've actually seen, which again is basically just Zoria Triglav, is female.
Through the mist, I saw a figure emerge, and with it, a darkness advanced, devouring and reshaping. And as the sunlight cast its final, everlasting shadow, I felt a chill rise from the abyss and eclipse the world.
So I believe that is Zoria Triglav, right? She's the only character that we've seen so far. And this does actually bring up an interesting question, which is that, like, I had a weird question that jumped out of this, which is, are the Triglavians clones? Much like the Drifters, right? Are the Zorias all the same? Because, you know, the fact that this is a female, a male, and a robotic voice, it makes me wonder if that's a coincidence or not, especially given the fact that they describe it that way. And if we see, like, if we listen to this, we hear a bold female, a practical robot, and a calm male.
Extirpated.
Deviant automata
Deviant
must
automata must come first, but we extirpate.
Corrupted
Corrupted.
Narodnia must be extirpated.
must be extirpated.
Human augmented Narodnia must
So the question is these the same voices, or is it just a coincidence that they have a male and a female and a robot in this one as well? They are very wary of Sancha corruption and destroy their own ships. Yeah, 3 consciousnesses in one body is definitely the direction that it seems like they're going. One of the things that I've speculated for a long time is the fact that, like, as their resources dwindled, they, you know, those who were not fit couldn't justify the resources to keep alive people that weren't fit, which is where they came up with this whole glorification of the fit, mortification of the unfit, and all that stuff. And I think that at some point they started actually like killing people and extracting their consciousnesses and like basically doubling up on bodies because there's so few resources that that's just what their dwindling society had to do. Istina. Is it Istina? 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 Is that right? Kernecki? The Edencom guy does default to male pronouns when talking about the Trig. Could it be the male-looking body? Ooh. Well, he even says, like, I don't know. He says, which of these 3 voices are behind the mask? Istina. He only says that after the break. Confirm with Istina. Awesome. Any of you guys with Slavic information have anything to tell me about the Triglavians or whatever, I would love to hear it. You know, obviously I've had to learn a lot. I didn't know very much about the Slavic culture or religion or verbiage or whatever prior to all this. So yeah, I'm doing my best over here, guys. Istina. And then is Pravda? Pravda? Yeah, Pravda. That's correct, I'm assuming. Male pronouns after the break. Where does he say that? I don't see anything about male pronouns. You're my prisoner. You will submit. Where does it? Yeah, I don't think it says any. Go up. They're running together. Where? All right, they're running. Jarish downward with an earth-shattering clash. Each step with a leap of faith. 2 survivors clasped their knees as they caught their breath. The mighty crash laying out. Losing himself in the moment, Jarish burst out laughing. 4 voices slapped his back as they spoke. He was shook by the familiarity of the gesture. I don't see any time that the Triglavian is. So how would Jarish have proven his directional allegiance? Like, did he have a way without extirpating? Well, yeah, he could have not attacked the Triglavian, right? He could have submitted, thrown down his weapon, become part of the proving, and become an aspirant Narania, for sure. He could have joined the flow of Viraj. He didn't have to lunge towards them. Yeah, I don't think they do. Maybe it was just goading him. I don't know, man. Like, so this is very consistent with what we understand about the Triglavians, right? Like, the Triglavians are very much about, like, everybody who shows fitness and willingness to be part of the flow of Viraj are welcome within the flow of Viraj, right? They don't gatekeep pretty well, or very much. Like, unless there is something that causes a person to be corrupted, you know, like because they're not, the Triglavians don't necessarily agree with each other most of the time. But the one thing that they agree on is the flow of Viraj, their united destiny. So, I sincerely believe that like the Triglavian was giving him a shot. Yeah. Yeah, he could have just not attacked him. So yeah, I guess the big thing that I want to point out, especially since we've got Flea in here, we got Nicholas, we got so many pro Triglavian dudes here right now. I want to say this because I've been asked a lot: has CCP abandoned the Trig? Has CCP abandoned, Pochvin and stuff? I'll tell you this: even before this chronicle's good evidence. But I will say this: as long as CCP Demiurge is at CCP, the Triglavian plot will not be dropped. I can guarantee that right now. So Uriel, who was a member of our community for years and years and years, one of the most well-known people when it comes to lore on the Triglavians and Jovians and all that stuff, he now works for CCP as CCP Demiurge. And, now that we've seen him join back in, we see things like this and we see other stuff being put in. I guarantee you, CCP is one of those companies that is really very much like pushed forward by the will of the people that work there, individuals who are willing to see that something happens. And so I think that this is a pretty safe assumption to say, or this is a clear indication to say that they are not done with Triglavians. They are not done with Pochvin. So, and I will say, hey, what's up, Nolan? 07 to you. So some people might claim, okay, well, but CCP Demiurge was brought on in regards to the new game, right? CCP Demiurge isn't necessarily part of the Eve lore team, right? Well, you say that, but look at this. In the forums post, it is CCP Demiurge himself that posts the dev blog for the hostile post. So CCP Diegetic, which is one of the writers, was the writer of Hostile, but it was CCP Demiurge or Uriel who posted that this chronicle was live. So CCP Demiurge is very much on the case. We will continue to see Triglavian stuff almost assuredly. So yeah, if anything, that is the biggest positive to take away from this whole thing. Even without the new chronicle, we just had a Trig event. Yes and no. I mean, the Trigs being tangentially involved is not the same as like the plot moving forward. I would agree with that. But yeah, I mean, this definitely cements that, I would say. But yeah, we're just gonna have to see how things play out because, you know, it is true that a lot of the lore also relies on development cycles in order to be able to be moved forward. So I'm particularly interested to see. You know, when I first read about 2 ships being crash landed, I was like, "Oh, is this the new shooter site?" But no, I don't think it's the new shooter site because the new shooter site is not a barren planet. It's a jungle-ish, you know, with water and flora. We still have the 3rd unused gate in the anchorage and the 3 home systems. Just saying, you're right. The new home fronts and hobo leaks have Trig stuff too. Only a couple of things. That is true. There is a Trig in the new There's a Trig hauler that appears to be attempting to get through the checkpoint, which is even more interesting. I think it's pretty strong evidence of the plot moving forward. The lore behind the event was the Trigs and the Drifters fighting each other. It's true. Fitness has been proven was in the Holy Leaks and one of the items added. Yes, yeah. But look. So it's the description of this benefaction Potremba. Potremba? What does Potremba mean? Well, so we have the Das Potremba, which is the hauler for the Triglavian collective. Crewed by the inscrutable trachas of the collective. Potremba might be inspired by Potreska, a supernatural being that stalks the earth, causing earthquakes. That sounds about right. Any rate, so this benefaction, it says, fitness has been proven, an uncorrupted flow needs no mortification. Oh my god, this is the word that I couldn't do the other day. Reciprocity for the shrouded conductors of ancient domains will rise in advanced time and coordinates. So it seems like they're basically saying that a hauler carrying corporate goods assigned for transport to facilities inside the state, or at least that's what the pilots would have you believe. So the whole point of this, these haulers is that there are different checkpoints, right? So, the traffic spot. Smugglers disguised as legitimate transporters are using this location to hide trafficking of highly sensitive data, scanning their cargo vessels on site to identify the smugglers and destroy them before they dock without disturbing innocent civilians. And so it seems like the Triglavians are one of the ships from that, which I find really odd. Like, under normal conditions, I would look at that and be like, well, maybe they just don't even care about the Triglavian lore anymore. But, like, I don't know, man. It's very interesting. It seems like there probably is a reason why they're going with a Triglavian ship in there. The other thing that's worth noting in the going back to the New Eden news, we can see that the Ashes of Turnur have encrypted Istina data. Here's the cool one. Ashes of Turnur extremists have research facilities salvage wrecks to secure encrypted Istina data before the site's reactor explodes, and they are lost forever. So the Ashes of Turnur, who have long since had mysterious and not directly laid out connections to the Triglavian collective, now are using this same word, Istina, in their data. So that's something that's probably worth paying attention to, especially since, like, this Ashes of Turnur one. So what's interesting is that the Ashes of Turnur where is it? Yeah, if you notice, there are multiple endings. Warpost is active and blasting away at those Ashes scum. Nicely done, Captain. Warpost online and programmed to consider Ashes hostile. Warpost online locking onto Ashes. Great. Love to see it. Great work. Warpost active. Those traitors march for destruction. Nice bit of hacking, Captain. Good work. And we see here, this is the Amar version. This is the Kaldari version. This is the Galente version. And this is the Mimitar version. So these Ashes of Alar, the Ashes of Turnur, which are associated with the Triglavians because they're using the word Istina, which is from the hostile and the verbiage of the Triglavian collective themselves. All four empires have their own copy of Ashes of Turnur that require you to fight them. Are they related to those people that the Triglavians dumped to the plasma and storm planets? No, they are related to the okay, they're hold on. They're related to these people.
The details of the disaster following the blast from the Star of Turnur on November 2nd.
I really like that Phoenix Wizard. Let me tell you, for years, I wanted the Ashes of Alar. Okay, I'm just going to say that right now. I always wanted the Ashes of Alar. Never got it. I have a huge history with the Ashes of Alar. There's a reason why I always think of it whenever I say the word ashes. I'm sorry.
Are still emerging in its aftermath. Closest to the star was the Imperial prototype stellar transmuter, understood to have destabilized the star through its experimental operations. A skeleton crew of
Actually, this is not the good video. This is a good video.
The Turnur system's star appears to have been destabilized beyond recovery by the activity of the prototype stellar transmuter placed in orbit by the Amar Empire. Stellar radiation emitted by the star has been fluctuating at ever shorter intervals, seemingly heading towards an imminent crescendo. Scientists raised the alarm upon calculating that the interval between radiation spikes has been decreasing in a linear manner, indicating that a terminal phase will be reached at around 1700 hours New Eden Standard on November 2nd. What exactly will happen during this posited terminal phase is debated, but the common consensus is that a major stellar event will take place. One leading theory is that a radiation burst and stellar mass ejection similar to that seen during the Salin incident of YC111 will take place. While the output and scale of extreme stellar events can vary widely, any effects from such a catastrophe are expected to be significant across the system. On the orders of Captain Marshal Sirdan Zerkosh, the Amar Empire crew manning the stellar transmuter in Turnur has been drawn down, and engineers are reported to be working on shutdown procedures. Orbiting closest to the star, the planet Turnur 1 and the Republic station around it are believed to be at grave risk of catastrophic damage or destruction in the event of a stellar event of similar scale to the Salin incident. Despite offers to raise wages and give substantial hazard pay bonuses, planetary industry workers on Turnur 1 have begun to evacuate from the planet. Thousands upon thousands of workers and their families are leaving, abandoning their equipment and leaving subsurface settlements empty of human life. Amar occupation forces have also long since left the planet, taking their own support workers and slaves with them. The only group willingly remaining behind are those nomadic descendants of the original Minmatar settlers of Turnur 1. These nomad clans lived in isolation for generations before interstellar trade and planetary industry began to make their presence felt on the rocky desert world. The nomad clans have apparently been convinced current events are caused by intervening spiritual forces due to the teachings of a shamanic figure known as Tanuk Gufran, the Absolver. He preaches that the planet and wider system will be purged of the conflict introduced by industry and war, leading to a transformation of Turnur 1. The bizarre teachings of the Absolver are taken seriously by Minmatar traditionalists as the ways of the clans of Turnur 1. And combined with the Amar presence, this has stymied efforts to evacuate the sizable yet untallied nomad population. Republic Fleet Hetman General Kanth Filmer has hit out at the Amar Empire for its reckless ambition and monstrous negligence in deploying and operating the stellar transmuters. General Filmer also condemned the Amar for hindering evacuation of the population from the system. Amar Imperial forces have refused cooperation offers and flatly rejected efforts to broker a truce. The Empire's stance has made it impossible for the Republic fleet to mount a major evacuation operation. Nevertheless, flights of transport ships have infiltrated Turnur and are struggling to move people from the Republic Parliament station above Turnur 1 onto other stations further out in the system. The desperate hope of Minmatar rescuers is that a major stellar event will not doom the entire system in far-flung stations, and planets will provide at least some shelter from any cataclysm, further complicating efforts to cleanly evacuate threatened.
So, a couple things. First of all, so basically what we have here is this population of Minmatar that do not trust the modern empires, but at the same time, like, have this guy named the Absolver who's kind of preaching all of this negative stuff and how it's going to be transformed. And he and all of the people here, even though they don't trust the empires and they don't trust modern technology, are using face masks that are seem to be derived from Triglavian technology for some unknown reason. These backwater people happen to have Triglavian technology that also happen to have built-in shielding systems to protect them from, say, a giant radioactive burst from the star, plus the Triglavians' capabilities of effectively transporting people instantaneously, beaming people from one place to another. So we have the Turnur people. We have this group of Turnur natives that used Triglavian technology and preached against the empires, who disappeared at the time of the destruction of Turnur and was thought to be lost. And we have this group of people called the Ashes of Turnur, which are basically advocates for the people of Turnur that were lost and just angry because of what happened, right? And they are using verbiage and having data that seems like it's associated with the Triglavians as well. So, yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on, right? Now, strange it didn't shatter, unlike every other example of an AO4 system. Well, there's a reason for that, right? In the course of all of the systems that were shattered, as far as the Caroline or the Apocrypha event, what actually happened was there was the first planet, and in the orbit between the first planet. Actually, hold on. Can I just do this? Yes, they're shielded by the ashes of Alar. That's right. Hold on, let me try to pull this up. Perfect. Okay. So okay, so what we have here is we have the local star, and then you have a bunch of planets orbiting around it, right? In between the first planet and the sun was a facility, okay? And that facility was filled with Isogen 5, okay? And these facilities were quantumly entangled. So the Isogen 5, which have unique gravitonic properties, exploded, dumping its energy into the star. Okay? This causes the star to react with a coronal mass injection, i.e., it's a giant wave of plasma being blown out of the star along the magnetic line, channeled by the magnetic line of the explosion of Isogen 5. And it's that ejection that blows up and shatters the first planet, okay? In the case of the stellar transmuter, you have this transmuter that is altering the star until it becomes resonant, right? So rather than having this big dump of energy that causes the blast of the coronal mass ejection, you basically have this transmuter that is causing a change in the star itself that is having its own, like, it's going through its own chemical reaction, right? So what's happening is that it's starting a cycle, right? It's much like a bridge, right? When you're walking along or you remember that bridge they made a long time ago that like everybody walking across it, because everybody synced up, the bridge went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now, obviously, all of the atoms and everything within that bridge is all just kind of randomly going, but with that force being put onto the bridge regularly in sequence with that bridge, it caused it to go harder and harder and harder and harder until it almost collapsed, right? And in fact, I think there has been some bridges like that were resonant and did collapse. So that's what we have here. We have a reaction, thanks to the stellar transmuter, that got more and more and more and more until finally it hit a cascade and then went whoom, and just put out this giant pulse of energy. However, this pulse of energy was not nearly as directed as the previous one. So much less directed, much less powerful. So instead of smashing straight into the first planet, it just scorched the first planet along with everything else, right? So that's the difference between the two happening, right? One was a directed effort that was coordinated and simultaneous across the New Eden for whatever reason by the original creators that channeled the energy directly into the first planet of each solar system. And then there's the Turnur explosion, which was a much less significant, and it did not have the same kind of opening charge and channeling of the force that the Apocrypha event did. Therefore, it had a very different result and didn't actually shatter the planet. It just scorched it. Questions? Comments? Concerns? All right, guys. But all of that said, there is a lot going on. It is a very exciting day. That is the lore from last week. We've got even more going on, of course, but I was referring to the AO 4 stars in the Shattered Wormholes, not the same one that turned into AOs. The assumption there is that those explosions were incredibly powerful, right? Like that was, you got to think that was the force of the Caroline Star event being funneled through all of those different, oh yeah, you can't see me. Whatever. You don't want to see me. All of those, so the Apocrypha event, sorry, the Caroline Star event was the force. You have the Dyson swarm of C-Tech, no. B-Tech, no. What is Caroline Star? 6MT. CMJ 6MT? No. Shit, what's... What's Caroline Star? Yeah, you can't see me anyways. Haha, see? W477 TAC P. Thank you. All right. Yeah. So W477 TAC P exploding sent an even larger amount of energy. You know, like some Isogen 5 caches, that's a big explosion. But an entire star exploding is a lot more energy, and that got dumped directly into the stars, creating big explosions. And even they only blew up the first, like, 2 or 3 planets. So, yeah, no, that's a big one. But the new Skyhook also powers harvests power from the stars as it adapted tech from these stellar transmuter things. I thought so too, Gina, but there is no indication that shows that they're actually using stellar transmuters for the Sovereignty Hub. If anything, you could just see that as just a giant solar array. So, yeah. But tomorrow, we will be back to show off all of the stuff with the expansion, see how it all goes, talks about anything going on. Hey, Laurelite. Just in time for me to be wrapping things up. But, yeah. So, any thoughts about the lore, the stuff we've talked about today? I guess my question for you is, well, actually, hold on. I gotta look up one more thing before we go. We have, this guy's name, right? I feel like this guy's name has happened before, right? Jerish Kovac? Isn't Jerish Kovac from somewhere before? Maybe not. Wait. Oh, that's Cavalis. Nope. Never used before that we can see. Nope, not in game either. All right, well, I think that's about it for... Do you think that we will ever get access to those systems in Joe space? Only if you're in fraternity. I've been Ashtarothi. I've been playing this game since 2010, talking about it since 2012, and I'm here to put even into context for you, my fellow Empyreans. Thank you guys so much for checking out the stream, for liking, commenting, subscribing, hanging out, making your comments, your contributions, and of course, to Tranquilla Mare and Bash, and I feel like there's somebody else. That's it for today? For your support. I will remind everybody I am trying to raise some money in order to give my son a good birthday and graduation. So if you're interested in supporting that, please let me know. Oh, you didn't get the joke? What about fraternity? Fraternity has somehow managed to find their way into fraternity or into Jove space several times recently, and have like contracted people stuff from Jove space as a way of messing with people. That was the joke. And he won't be used again. Well, I mean, he probably won't be used again. That's true. So one of the big questions is, of course, which planet is this on, right? Like we could go, what did they contract? I don't know. Off the top of my head. I just heard people talking about it. Like, yeah, it could very well have been in Vararavos. There are 4 barren planets on Vararavos. So 5 barren planets on Vararavos. So, but we don't know. We don't know which trig system it takes place in. Wasn't there something hidden back in the day that about a way to get to Jove space? No, like they've been kind of hinting at the fact that Jove space is kind of the crowning jewel of all of this precursor crisis since 2014, but no path to Jove space has ever been revealed. We'll see tomorrow if I'm fast enough to get on the draw to get first builds in. We'll have to see. That's true. There are plenty of confirmed secrets in wormhole space, but as far as I know, there are no in-game methods to get to Jovian space. From my understanding, Frat social engineered a GM moving them there as part of a ticket. I'm not sure. Either way, like I said, I've been Ashtarothi. I've been playing this game since 2010, talking about it since 2012. And I'm here to put even into context for you, my fellow Empyreans. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for checking things out, for sharing the stream, for liking, commenting, subscribing. I will see you guys tomorrow in Equinox. But until then, I have been Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden, and I'll see you in space.
Bring on the wrecking machine. every city.